How did you get here? How did you get to the factory? And tell us the story that made you go from point A to point B.
You see, actually I told you a little bit earlier because I wanted you to experience it just like the people who are going to watch it from their computers. Well, man, I came from a family with a lot of money, you know? Unlike what you usually see with people who end up selling a course, you know? I came from a family that made windows during the real estate boom. When the financial crisis of 2008 hit, my family went through a brutal bankruptcy. I mean, we didn't just lose almost all our money, but also what they had invested, they invested very badly, and suddenly a huge debt started. And me, as a kid, because at that time I was a child, I didn't really understand it much. But I did notice that suddenly the food changed, you know? Or things like that, which at first, well, as a kid, they affect you, you know? Because you realize that your family is becoming poor, you know? From there, it got even worse because my father, in order to survive and help the family, started taking out a lot of microloans, you know? That's when it happened. My father always told me not to answer the phone to anyone. Don't answer the phone because if you do, it could be worse. They might try to collect and see something from us. Eventually, they started calling 2 or 3 times a day. Afterwards, they even came knocking at our house. I lived in Sant Boi, near Barcelona, in a small town. It was wild because I felt harassed, even as a kid, like they were chasing us. Sometimes my dad would look back on the street to see if someone was following him. Because, well, he was getting a pension, you know, because he had a problem with apnea, you know? And, well, there were people watching him to see if he really had that problem, you know? Anyway, it was a tough situation because we used to be doing really well. At Christmas, they'd get me a Wii or PlayStation even though money was tight so I wouldn't get spoiled. Still, I ended up with 40 gifts. At home during Christmas, being in that situation. One day my mom even told me she mixed the milk with water, man. In the morning, you know? Because I asked her for money to go out with friends and she told me right then that was a defining moment in my life. It was like, wow, when did we get so poor, man? You know? Actually, to go a bit deeper into it so you understand how I got here, from then on, I started to feel unlucky in life, even though my parents, without realizing it, love me a lot and have treated me well. But they started to make me feel like I was a burden, you know, that feeding me, helping me study, you know, that I was being a huge problem for the family, you know? And I started to feel like a burden, man.
Like, do you have a brother, Roger?
Yes, a sister.
Older or younger?
Younger. And actually, she has been a huge motivation for me because I didn't want her to go through what I was going through, you know? And when she was still little, because there's a 7.5-year age gap between us, you know? I didn't want her to go through what I did when she realized it, you know? That motivated me a lot. The biggest one, actually. And well, I felt like a burden, man. And subconsciously, like I was telling you before, you know? I started to develop the desire to die, bro. Dude. Yeah, subconsciously. How?
What do you mean? Let's dig deeper into this. I mean, did you actually have thoughts of taking your own life, or was it more something that wasn't tangible but was still underlying inside you?
I'm not sure I'm explaining myself. Yes, it was subconscious. It was subconscious because I started doing parkour because that risk, you know, it satisfied a part of me, you know? I subconsciously thought that if something happened to me in the end, it wouldn't be such a big deal, you know? Like, it wouldn't be that bad for everyone, you know? And I started taking parkour to the extreme, you know? Like throwing myself into a double backflip off a lifeguard chair. I pushed it to the extreme and kept going further. My parents even told me to join gymnastics or something so I wouldn't get myself killed. And it just so happened that a very sexy girl from my town told me, hey, could you join our cheerleading team in Barcelona? I joined the cheerleading team and it was like paradise since it was free for me due to my skill level. They wanted to go to the world championship. I would get there and all the ultra sexy girls from Barcelona were there, you know? And I had access to the entire INEF gym in Barcelona, which is the best gym in Barcelona, free for me. So it was like a dream, you know? Being able to do parkour there. I stayed and the demands were extremely high, even in high school. I traveled over an hour from Sant Samboya to Barcelona for high school, then attended INEF. I used to come back very late, barely slept, and did this for nearly 2 years, sleeping little and doing intense 2 to 3 hour sessions. Training at the gym because they wanted to go to the world championship, you know? And well, what happened is that one day, leading up to a key event that I experienced and not even the team knows about, and it was very significant. Also, like, in cheerleading, it's super common to do something called a basket. That's when we have 2 bases and a back spot. And then there's a girl called the flyer, right? She's kind of like a feather, and we do a count of 1, 2, and we throw her, I don't know, like 7 meters, 10 meters, really high. She does her stunts, then you catch her, and we throw her backwards. Something that's riskier is more common there. Maybe if I explain in detail, you'll think it's crazy, but it was normal because we were preparing for the World Championship. We threw her backward, and she started spinning. Knowing she hadn't gone up and had gone the wrong way, she thought, damn, I'm leaving this life, you know? Well, if you fall from 10 meters to the ground, you die. And neither of the two guys reacted, so I had to rush out to catch her, and I caught her directly, intercepting her in the air. So I intercepted her and fell on my back, and when I fell on my back, that's when, well, it wasn't a herniated disc, my discs broke. I mean, they shattered. Imagine that, even though she's called a flyer and weighs 40 kilos, she was falling from 7 or 10 meters. And of course, I intercepted her and took the whole hit against the ground with my back. So at that moment, with the adrenaline, I kept training, but I ended up passing out halfway through the training. Yeah, heavy. Since then, I started to lose, of course, because what happened to me is that my nerves got pinched, the sciatic nerve got pinched, but in several spots along my spine. I started to lose feeling first in my left leg, you know? For months, it hurt so much, they had to inject morphine into my butt. I started to lose the ability to get up on my toes. I mean, I couldn't do this exercise. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but like standing on my tiptoes. Then I couldn't lift it, and eventually I walked like a zombie. I started losing feeling in my entire leg and then the other one too. It was a mess. Anyway, I would say I wasn't scared, like I always had faith that I was going to get out of there, but all the doctors, at least the ones I had access to because we didn't have money, which were like free services, told me it was over.
You weren't going to walk again.
Exactly. For someone who played sports all their life, it was unacceptable.
So the doctors actually told you that you would never walk again.
They also said I wouldn't feel anything from the waist down, not even if my penis was erect, and that I'd lose control of my bladder and become disabled.
No. Literally, if you can't walk and have to use a wheelchair, they literally told you that you were going to be paraplegic.
Exactly. Yeah. And at that moment, I didn't believe it, you know? It was intense since I'd played sports all my life. So I spent about a year and a half, almost 2, in that situation, gradually losing the use of my legs, getting morphine injections in my butt several times a day, you know? I was already used to getting injections at the doctor and living drugged up, you know? I couldn't lie down because of the pain. I was writhing. It was an extremely intense situation. And in the end, my parents worked a miracle and pulled some strings to get the insurance to pay for the operation. This was truly a breaking point for me. When the day of the operation arrived, the insurance covered everything except the stretcher for the day before, which was $20. I've mentioned this on Instagram before, and people laughed, joking, just $20, vibe and so on. But you need to understand my situation then. My grandfather was the one providing us food. My grandfather received a pension of 700 or 800 euros and lived on it. He gave us what he could, some food and a little money, but we still piled up debt. But we had our bank accounts frozen and we didn't have any cash, no money at all. I mean, we lived off what my grandfather gave us. My grandfather even gave us money for gas, you know? I mean, it was a situation where they had no liquidity and their relationships with friends were burned out, you know? So for those $20, my family agreed that I wouldn't get the surgery. You know? Yeah. We went back to Barcelona because I'm going to have surgery in, I'll have surgery. I'm going to have surgery in Barcelona. What year did this happen?
There was no visa?
Right? The year before going to college, like in the second year of high school, I would say no. I mean,
Visum didn't exist yet. Instant transfers where someone could send you money right away.
But beyond that, it's that my parents, at that time, in the mental state they were in, because they were kind of depressed, wouldn't know who to ask for it either. And I didn't either.
Your father didn't have the ability to solve it because he was completely overwhelmed with everything.
Exactly. It's complicated to understand, I know, but in that situation, you really have to live it to